pod bay doors.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of The Cinematic Traveler. I am your intrepid movie exploring host, Chris, and on this episode, I am going to be bringing you my review for the latest horror comedy to hit movie theaters. This one with a mythological creature twist to it, and it is entitled Death of a Unicorn, directed by Alex Sharfman, and starring Paul Rudd and current Scream Queen Jenna Ortega. I am excited not only to be back talking to you about movies again, but especially a horror comedy. You know that's right up my alley. So this is going to be a fun episode. But before we get into everything, I do have to ask a favor of you. Whatever you are listening or watching this show on, there is a follow or subscribe button somewhere. If you could please tap that, I would greatly appreciate it. It does help me and the show, but it also helps you. You won't miss any future episodes, and you can listen to my previous amazing reviews and hear my sexy, sexy voice. Now you can look at my sexy, sexy face. Okay, that one, that could be stretching it a little bit. All right. Anyway, so please follow the show, help me out, share the show with your friends, families, mythical creatures. I don't care. As long as you're sharing the show with someone, share it on your social media. Speaking of that, if you want to follow me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at Cinematic Traveler Pod. I would say that's probably the best and easiest way. I am on the other ones, Twitter and Blue Sky, but I don't really keep up with that much. I also have an email address, thecinematiCtravelerPod@gmail.com, so you get in touch with me with that. I am on YouTube currently. We'll get to that later, but that one is at Cinematic Traveler Pod as well, I think. So, yeah, plenty of ways to follow the show. Get in touch with your favorite host and leave me comments and all that fun stuff. So there, I got through all of that. Podcaster, YouTuber, mumbo jumbo, quick, fast, and in a hurry so we can dive into this episode. I hope you're doing well out there, my beloved listener. You should be getting this episode, I'd say Sunday night, maybe Monday morning. So we are back pushing the boulder up the hill for this week. But you know what? We can do it. We survived last week. We'll survive this week, and we'll survive the next one. The horrors persist, but so do we. So now that we've gotten our witty banter out of the way, and speaking of horrors, let's go ahead and talk about Death of a Unicorn.
Yeah, it's going to be fun on the bun.
And as I mentioned, this is directed by Alex Sharfman. He also wrote the film, and I believe this is his first film. So this will be our first foray into his filmography. Let's see how he does with this first big screen outing. And now, before I do dive in, let me over-explain a couple of things. I am going to give you a spoiler-free review as well as a spoiler-free plot synopsis. Now, in that plot synopsis, I have hidden two movie quotes that are from movies that run either parallel or share a little DNA with this film. And if you can identify those movies, just get in touch with me through the various means I have already told you about. You get a point for each one that you get right. At the end of the month, I add up all the points, and whoever wins gets to pick a movie for me to review next month. Oh, how exciting is that? How exciting! Yay! Or if you just listen from time to time or your first time listening, you can just play along for fun and let me know you're out there. It does get lonely behind my fort of blankets here. I know it seems a little uncool, but come on, that's the best time of the week, is to be uncool with Chris. All right, so I hear you. Let's talk about this damn movie already. Well, we open the film with Elliot, played by Paul Rudd, and his daughter Ridley, played by Jenna Ortega, heading to a business meeting with his soon-to-be bosses in their remote mansion in the mountains. Before they reach the mansion, Elliot hits something with his vehicle, and it turns out this something is one of the most famous mythical creatures ever, and every little girl's dream pet, a unicorn. Now, desperate to keep this accident from his boss, Odell, played by Richard E. Grant, and Odell's wife, Belinda, played by Taya Leone, and their dim-witted son, Shepard, played by Will Poulter, and I always get his last name wrong, so I'm sure I've gotten it wrong again. Elliot decides to hide this dead unicorn inside his vehicle until he can dispose of the body in secret later on. Now, unfortunately for Elliot, this unicorn isn't eager to stay dead. It tries to escape, but is quickly captured. Now, Odell is a head of a major pharmaceutical company, and when he realizes this unicorn has healing abilities, he begins to experiment on the creature with no mercy, saying something like, "It's too bad she won't live." But then again, who does? Hint, hint. However, there is more than one unicorn out there, and when the others show up, well, they aren't the sweet creatures from your youth and the cartoons from Saturday morning. No, these are the stuff of nightmares as they wreak maximum carnage on all in their way as they try to find their missing kin. This leads to Ridley trying to save the injured unicorn, Elliot trying to save Ridley from the mayhem caused by these renegade unicorns, and the rich people trying to keep the unicorn's magic horn saying something like, "Magic horn is mine, mine, mine. Now all creatures will love the night and worship goblins as divine." Hint, hint. Will these creatures of legend kill everyone in the mansion, or will the evil, rich, pharmaceutical a-holes make this the last unicorn? Well, I will not spoil this movie by answering those questions, but I will give you the best review in all of the podcaster YouTuber universe, nay, in all of the universe. Now, I will let you know I was a bit excited to go see this movie. It seemed like a different twist on the horror comedy genre. Like I said, bringing in the magical unicorns and making them a bit evil, or at least violent as they are. I thought this could be a fun adventure. So let's start off with the good or the positives of Death of a Unicorn.
Sounds pleasant.
I'm going to start with the casting. I do have to say something. If I was writing a script for the movie and they said before they had even approached me with the idea of the movie or the script, they said, "This is your cast. These are the people playing these characters." This is exactly sort of the script I would write for each of these people. I think there is a good a balance between what these actors are best known for and what the script or this movie allows them to be. Of course, you've got Paul Rudd. He's playing the dad. It's kind of, I don't know, I say bumbling, but he's a bit nervous. He's trying to do right by Ridley, his daughter, but he's also trying to land this big contract with these rich people because he knows that will set them up for life. His wife, her mother had passed away a few years back, so he's been trying to reconnect with her. She's not really excited to be joining him on this trip because she's in college and she has all these liberal views and she knows what's going on and she doesn't really like being around him. So that's kind of where you pick up the movie at the beginning, and he's just like, "Look, please just go along with this." They're really big on family, and they just have to show them that we're still a family, the best that we are, right before they hit this unicorn. But Paul Rudd, this is sort of his typical Paul Rudd character, the nice guy who's trying his best, but he makes his mistakes. And again, he's trying to redeem himself with his daughter. He has good chemistry with Jenna Ortega. We'll move right into her. Like I said, she's the current Scream Queen. It seems like every time you turn around, she's in some kind of horror movie, but she does a good job here. She's playing a Jenna Ortega character. As I mentioned, if you would have just said these are the actors, this is the perfect script to marry with them because she's playing sort of the angsty, I guess she's in college, so late teens, early 20s. I'm not sure how old Jenna Ortega is. She looks like she's about 15, so I don't know how long she can play these types of characters, but probably for the next 10 years. She looks very young. But yeah, she handles that very well. That's just right in her wheelhouse. And she plays the very sympathetic character to the unicorns. She sort of researches what's going on in the story to better understand why these creatures are acting the way they are. She's thinking outside of the box, whereas most of the other people, especially the rich people, are just thinking about the greedy side of it and how they can exploit what they have found to make more money for them and their friends. So again, that's your main protagonists of the story, and they do a fine job with that. Outside of that, Taya Leone, she does a good job as the uppity rich white mother. She can nail that role. Will Poultier, I can never say his last name. Again, I don't know how much to add to this. He's playing the character that you expected to play, sort of the dim-witted goofball who is trying to prove that he's smart to his parents, but it always seems to come up a little short. But he does it very well. He's very convincing. He believes in himself, even though he doesn't really have the brain power to back things up that he says. Plus, he's just so goofy looking. He wears these little shorts all the way through with like polos and stuff. He fits that trope of the spoiled rich kid. Richard E. Grant, I mean, he's just chewing it up in this movie. I think he kind of almost steals the movie for me because he's doing a Richard E. Grant type of role where he gets to be really, it's kind of funny because he starts out, he's very sick at the beginning of the movie. That's sort of where he learns about these magical powers of the unicorn and uses those to his advantage. But, he's kind of this guy who's at the end of the line and he knows it. So he's a little more loving and forgiving and he's kind of at peace. And he has all these weird little things he says to try to relate to Ridley and all that. But then as soon as he gets his mojo back, as it were, he just becomes this over the top villainous character, and it's really fun to watch him play that role because that's kind of what you're used to. Let's see who else is in the cast. An actor that pops up that I was really happy to see in this movie, and that's Anthony Carrigan. He plays the butler Griff. If you don't know him by name, I don't know. There's a show that was on HBO I used to love called Barry, and he played NoHo Hank, and he was, oh god, I think he stole every scene in that show that he was on. Oh, he was so great. So it's always cool to see him. He does sort of the same thing here. He has some really great comedic moments, just almost like a silent comedian. He has to do a lot through facial expressions and just how he stands and he slumps over at certain points. He's a good character. He brings some levity in the movie. So I think really all the cast does exactly what they're supposed to do. Again, I think they're just, I hate to say perfectly cast, but it's more like these are the types of roles you would expect these actors to play. How about that? Which moves him to my next positive for the movie. That would be the direction. I think Alex Sharfman does a pretty good job with this film. He channels his inner Edgar Wright every now and then, with those little snap cuts that Edgar loves to do. But I think he balances out the comedy with the horror very well. This movie does what I think most good horror comedy movies do. They take the horror side and they make it scary. They don't laugh about that. They just laugh at the reactions of things around it. So you are invested in these characters being scared by these creatures, these giant mythical creatures doing all the awful things that they are doing in this film, which we will have a gore score at the end of this movie because, there are some moments. But yeah, so that is all taken very seriously. But the comedy side is handled very well. There's some laugh out loud moments. Like I said, I think Richard E. Grant gets most of them out of me because I think he can do this role so perfectly. But yeah, even Will Poulter, I think Poulter, whatever. At this point, doesn't matter. Will, if you're watching, and I know you are, just come on and correct me. We'll talk. We'll discuss your career, all that fun stuff. But no, I think he does that as well. There's a lot of funny moments between those two. And of course, Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega are good at what they do. So yeah, I think this movie does a fine job of balancing all of that. And there's some issues we're going to get to in a little bit. But for the most part, it flows along very nicely. I think it's less than 2 hours. Unless you go to Regal Cinemas, then you're going to get 30 minutes of previews and commercials and all kind of bullshit before the movie even starts. And you just sit there and go, oh my God, are we ever going to get to the movie? And by then you're already grouchy. And, if you're already a little grumpy or grouchy or you're watching a movie, you just start to really hate movies. And that's what Regal Cinemas is doing to me. It's really making me start to hate movies. More so than the people in the movie theater. I know I'm off on a tangent here, but oh my God, I'm so tired of sitting in that movie theater for 30 extra. And I know, I hear you. Why don't you just wait an extra 30 minutes? Because with my luck, I would get stuck in traffic or some bullshit. Anyway, let's get back to the review. I'm sorry about that. Calm down. Let's find our inner peace here. Home. Anyways, so yeah, I think that overall the look of the film as well as the balance of the comedy and horror is done very well. Again, I really enjoyed the premise of the film. Again, I'll get into some negatives here in a minute, but it was kind of cool to see unicorns not being these awe-inspiring, mythical, magical creatures, which they are magical, but boy, they do some horrible, horrible things in this movie. There is some gore that it surprised me. I will say that's a lot of CGI. I wish they'd have gone a little more practical, but that's just more of a small nitpick from my taste, as it were. But overall, yeah, they don't hold back with that. I thought maybe they would just kind of tease it a little bit or, turn the camera away for the really bad moments. But no, you do get to see a lot of unicorn horns and what they would do to human beings and horse feet when they step on you and just all the horrible things they could do. So I like that. I thought it was a cool little twist on that. It plays around with it, has some fun with it. And, again, it's something unique, something different that we haven't seen before. So I did appreciate that premise of the film. And I did appreciate the fact that Alex, the director there, he actually steered into the mayhem that came from that instead of kind of guarding it from us. Although I hope that if you have little kids who see that this is a unicorn movie, perhaps you will research a little bit, listen to this review, or go online and see that this is a rated R movie, and you don't want this would terrorize little kids. I guess if you wanted to cure that, if you got tired of your kid playing with unicorns, you're like, look, let's just end this now. I'll take them to this movie. They will never want to see another unicorn for the rest of their lives. So yeah, that was a really cool concept that I enjoyed. But let's go ahead and move into the negatives of Death of a Unicorn.
Uh-oh, I don't like the sound of that.
And while I did enjoy the concept of it, and it was fun, like I said, when it gets gory and stuff, they do lean into it, they steer right into it. However, I wish they'd have gone a little more over the top or maybe pushed the boundaries a little bit more with this movie. It seemed like there were times where it was close and it was like going to really, shift into that gear where it was going to be way over the top, which I would have loved. But it backs up a little bit from that. I know a little bit contradictory to what I just said, but I enjoyed that they pushed it as far as they did. I just wish they had took that one more little step. I would have enjoyed it a little more because after a while, the movie does feel very familiar, despite the fact that this is an interesting and unique concept. Ultimately, it's sort of just a creature feature that you're used to. You have very familiar tropes of the creature. It really does teleport around. How there's one scene where it appears and you're like, there's no way they would have heard this giant mythical creature walking through the house. But anyway, so you get some of that where it teleports around and appears where it needs to. You have characters doing dumb things, making dumb decisions, which, I hate to put in negative. A horror movie's got a horror movie, right? You can't have the horror if someone doesn't make a bad decision. But there are points in the movie where it's obvious what these other unicorns are looking for or why they're there, and you have characters that really through most of the movie like, what's going on? Why do they keep coming back? I don't understand what they it's fairly obvious because this is all familiar. You know what this is leading to and where it's going. There's also familiarity with the characters. As I mentioned, Jenna Ortega, she's playing the angsty teen or early 20s, whatever she's supposed to be, who's smarter than everybody else and can see through everything. And, she has to bring up, oh my God, if I hear another character in a movie bring up misogyny or something about rich people or the patriarchy, I'm like, oh God, can we just please move on from that already? Especially when there's a point in the movie where I really thought that it kind of could have changed the way her character perceives things. Because as I mentioned, there are magical elements to the unicorns that can help people heal. And her mother died from, I think, cancer. So you thought maybe that could have maybe changed her view, made her character a little more interesting, but it never really turns into that. But at any rate, she's that tropey character who's clashing with her dad because he's always embarrassing her and doesn't listen to her and all that. And Paul Rudd is playing that character who's the nice guy who should be listening to his daughter because it's very obvious that she knows what she's talking about and he shouldn't dismiss her and he should side with her. But of course, he's looking for his paycheck. And then the rich people are all basically one note. As I mentioned, Richard E. Grant does have that transformation, but he kind of goes into the more one note rich character as it gets healthier. So yeah, there's nothing unique with the characters. I think they're done well because you have the right actors to those parts, but at the same time, I don't think it's bringing anything unique or original to this type of movie. It's a creature feature. That's what it is. My next negative for the movie is that it drags a little bit with the setup. I think it could have got there a little bit quicker because you do know what this movie is and you do know where it's going. So there aren't any twists and turns. So it's kind of like, okay, let's just get there already. Let's get to the mayhem. Let's have fun with the carnage and the premise of the movie and then get to the resolution. So there's a bit in the opening where everything's established. So it does seem like it drags a little bit at the beginning. I think maybe the setup, although I do appreciate it, was a little too long because everything is so tropey that, these characters aren't giving you anything interesting to think about or take in as you're building up to the suspense of these giant monsters coming after them. Instead, you're just like, okay, I know what this is. Let's just get there. So again, I will criticize the movie a little bit for not taking a few more chances. I wish it would have, like I said, I wish it would have just pushed a little bit further and maybe, it gone a little schlockier. I'm good with that. I'm an 80s horror fan, so I'll lap up all that schlock. Nom, 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 nom. So let's go and move. I don't know what the fuck that was. Sometimes I'm just here to entertain myself. Actually, most of the time, I'm just here to entertain myself. All right. So my final negative of the movie, again, this could probably fall into a nitpick category, but I think the end, again, it does something that a lot of movies do nowadays. It doesn't really know when to end. Felt like there was a natural ending point, and we go a little bit further. It doesn't drag on too long, but it seems like there's maybe a few extra minutes that we really didn't need. I don't know if they're setting up something or what, but yeah, I didn't need that. But also, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there's an emotional moment that had me. I was like, oh, well, I was surprised. I was like, I didn't think they would do that in this type of movie, and then something changes. So again, I don't want to spoil anything, but it was kind of like, oh, well, you shouldn't have done that. You had me right there. Just let it be and let's move on. It would have made for a more profound ending to the film. So while I don't want to criticize the end too bad, I'm not going to sit here and go, they didn't stick the landing. I think it has a few little missteps here and there. That would probably be my last negative for the film. Now, before I get into my overall thoughts on the movie, let me give you a gore score. As I mentioned, this is the only thing I give a number rating to. Between 1 and 5, 1 is probably little or no gore, and 5 is something along the lines of Terrifier 3, where there's blood and guts everywhere. This one I'm going to put about a 3.5, 3.5. There's some surprising moments. There are some things these unicorns do that, while they made me laugh in the movie theater because I am really fucked up in the head. But, I enjoy that kind of stuff. But, you might want to turn away if you're not a big fan of gore, although a lot of it was CGI. But, what the hell? It was good stuff. So yeah, 3.5. Be warned, there are some bloody kills in this movie. Overall, I had a good time with this film. As I mentioned, I was a little bit worried with the setup. I was like, okay, are we ever going to get there? But once you get into the carnage, it becomes a fun little roller coaster ride. Yes, you know where it's going. You got one note characters for most of this movie, but they're all doing, like I said, I think the cast is right for those roles. So you enjoy them playing these parts. And, as I mentioned, it's a horror comedy. It's got laughs. It's got some good scares in it, some good gore. I'm not going to say this is brilliant. You're probably not going to remember this movie in 6 months if you watch it. I would probably, this one, it's kind of weird. It bounces for me between see it on streaming and see it in the movie theater. But, we should support something with original ideas. I know a lot of us movie fans were out there like, oh, we're tired of sequels and superhero movies and we need new ideas. Well, here's a new idea, so go out and support it. So I'm going to recommend going to watch it in the movie theater if you're into horror comedies. It doesn't disappoint in that regard. It's a fun, easy time. Get your popcorn, have a good time. But Jenna Ortega continues to be this generation's scream queen. I'm curious if she'll ever step outside of that realm and how she'll do with that. But for now, she's definitely found a niche and is making a lot of money off of it. God bless her. But yeah, it's an enjoyable flick. Go out, have a good time. Support these original ideas so we can get more original ideas. And we can see a new director, writer director. I mean, this is his first time out. Let's see what he can do if he builds upon that. Maybe he can listen to my show and see a few of his mistakes and fix it. Because why wouldn't a filmmaker listen to some guy in his apartment behind a blanket talking into a microphone? Oh, this is all so very, very ridiculous. But that wraps up my review for Death of a Unicorn. As I mentioned, go support this movie, damn it. I like original ideas. I want to see more original ideas. Now, before I go, I just want to mention I did do a guest spot on another YouTube podcast. The other night, we talked about the 1985 Arnold Schwarzenegger hit Commando. And that was with the YouTube podcast channel, The MCU's Bleeding Edge. And I had a great time being part of that panel. I will try my best to put a link somewhere on the YouTube thing, however they do that. I wish I could be one of those people where they I'm gonna figure that out where they go, oh, I'll put a link right here and it's up in the corner and stuff. I'll figure that out one day, and then I'll just link a bunch of shit all the time. But I'll put it somewhere in the description if I can. But yeah, definitely go find that. Those guys were. I had a great time talking with them, and I can't wait. Hopefully, I'll get invited back. I know it's intimidating to have me on the show because I'm so amazing. But yeah, definitely go check that out. Let's see if there's anything else I want to say before we go. Well, I did mention, yeah, we're gonna just bear with me on the YouTube side again. I'm trying to update a few things to make this a little more visually appealing to you, but as I've mentioned before, I'm an old dog trying to learn a new trick. So again, bear with me, but hopefully I can get something a little better quality for you. Maybe I can stand out and get a few more people to watch. If you aren't watching on YouTube, go find me and subscribe. Come on, damn it. I mean, whatever you're listening or watching this show on, come on, follow, subscribe, participate in the contest, have a good time. That's what we're here for. These are all just silly, silly movies, a little break from life. So hopefully I helped you with that. And if you're still listening, I must have done something right. So yeah, again, please follow and subscribe to the show. I will be back next week with another brand new review. But until then, I do want to thank you for taking the time out of your day for listening to my show. I tell everyone I know I've got the smartest and sexiest audience in all the podcast YouTube universe, and you never fail to live up to those high standards. And as you are traveling around on this blue and green ball, bouncing through the cosmos, avoiding deadly mythical unicorns in your way, I need you to do one thing for me. Go out and do that voodoo that you do so well.
All right, show's over. I'm tired.